Ohio gozaimasu. Welcome to Dr. Mom Live. It is the Thursday already. My goodness, the week is just flying by. Welcome everyone to this Moving Forward series. Building a strong foundation is principle number one, although the Bible series I'm doing right now on Women of the Bible could do multitude of things, right? So the three principles in my Moving Forward series are building a strong foundation, goal setting, and professional development. I feel like definitely by learning about other women, especially biblical women or women in general, historical, I've done a lot of papers on other women. I just find them fascinating, the women who have done things, that we can look back on and learn from. To me, that's professional development. That's self-development. We can learn from them, right? And so I love this series. I love learning about women. I love empowering women. I love empowered women, independent women. I am a doctor of higher education. I am a professional business person. I am an entrepreneur. I am a mom, a widow, grandma to almost 9 now, friend, sister, aunt, all those things. I'm here because I'm being led in this direction, and I do the Moving Forward series 5 days a week. Eventually, I'm doing 2 other series. One is a bodybuilding series, and one is a house remodel project, which I'm getting ready to flip, but it's starting to get a little bit hairy, the timelines. So tomorrow I will update my bodybuilding progress, and then on the weekend I usually do a live video on my house remodel, which is coming along, but I'm telling you, the things that you learn that make your brain go like crazy, and then you get it and then it's good, right? So I'll be doing that tomorrow. But today and for 52 days, and this is the 4th day in, I am doing a series on women of the Bible. Now, generally what I found, I've done one before where I did the 12 women of the Bible. It was fascinating. And remembering that their lives were quite different than ours. I mean, there's probably good and bad in both situations, but they lived in some pretty rough times. And a lot of times, like we learned yesterday, we talked about Hagar, and we learned about her being in this situation of being a slave and in a concubine with Abraham and Sarah, and, being asked to have a child and then kind of turned away with her and her child. Now, God did take care of her and all those things, but I mean, there's sometimes the women or men, it's not just a women thing. It's just that I can relate to them easier, and I find them fascinating historical documents, reading back about other women. I find it so. I did this one article, and maybe I'll do that eventually, but I did an article, a paper, actually. I think it was in my master's. It might have been my doctorate program. I can't remember. Maybe my doctorate, on African-American lady who, and because my doctorate's in higher education, it was on education, and just her story of all the things that she did. And this was back when they didn't have a lot of African-American schools for women. And it was just incredible. So maybe sometime I'll share that with you if I can find the research I did it, but it was pretty incredible, the things that she was able to accomplish. So this one in particular that I'm doing today is on Lot's wife. which I find even fascinating, the fact that they don't even give her a name in the story. And I find it a little bit sad. But I feel like she was someone that we're supposed to learn a lesson from. But still, I don't know, it's kind of sad that they just call her Lot's wife. So she's not even named her actual name in the Bible at all. And there's not a lot of quotes on this. I mean, you're gonna find some on Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's just the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the town. I believe this one was Sodom that was burnt down by God at that time. For all the evilness that was going on. And I read a thing on it, and it was talking about how the people weren't, they were really selfish and self-centered, and they weren't, kind of reminds me a little bit about when Moses went up to meet with God and got the 10 Commandments, and the people were partying like mad and weren't listening to anybody. Same thing, only this city had been pretty evil for a long time. Evil in the sense that they were selfish and taking for others, and weren't helping anyone, weren't helping the poor, weren't helping their neighbors. They were just really self-centered people. And so it was kind of an evil city, apparently. And so Lot and his wife and 2 girls, I believe, lived in this city, and Lot, remember, is, I believe, the nephew of Abraham. And so with that, I am going to read a couple quotes. I did find them, but I based it on doing the right thing, because in a way, that's what happened to Lot's wife. She didn't do what God instructed her to do and paid a dear price. So this is what I found on doing the right thing. Now, this is a direct quote from the lesson we're doing today on Lot's wife. And it says, "Listen to me and live abundantly." And we've talked about that continually. That's in John 8:36, Proverbs 19:21, and John 10:27. This is the next one is C.S. Lewis. And it says, "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." I've read that several times before. And then here's another one that I think sort of so I feel like in reading the story that Lot's wife was really going along with the crowd. Like, I think living in the city, she must have had, I don't know, a lot of earthly things, and she didn't want to leave them behind. And then she paid in the end for not listening, didn't she? So it's easy to stand with the crowd. It takes courage to stand alone. And now that's anonymous. I didn't see an author to that. Doing the right thing is a decision which in many cases means you stand alone. Sebastian Kurd. And I sort of was thinking when I was reading through this, how you make there's some quote, and I can't remember what it is, but how you make the decisions on what you're doing in your life, and if you're doing the right or wrong thing. And it's something like, it depends on the beast that you feed, or, because there's 2 of you inside. There's more than 2 probably. The I, the ego, and the superego going on all inside of you. And so do you feed the person inside of you that does the right thing, or do you feed the person inside of you that is doing the wrong thing, even though you know that it's wrong? So it's kind of like, what comes out of your nature is which one you feed the most. I think it's kind of how it goes. Okay, with that, I'm going to get busy with this one. I did find quite a bit of information. I need to study more on the history of what was going on during those times, because I think it would be very interesting. I read a lot of Bill O'Reilly's books, Killing Jesus and Killing Lincoln, I think Killing Kennedy, which, politics aside, I really liked his writing style because he was very factual. I found it very interesting how he went back in time and uncovered all these historical facts that you don't normally look at. That's why I really liked his books. Besides what you think of him as a person, his writing abilities I really like. So, okay, today we're talking about Lot's wife, and we don't even know her name. So, what was her character? She was a prosperous woman who may have been more attached to the good life than was good for her. Though there is no indication she participated in the sin of Sodom, her story implies that she had learned to tolerate it, and their heart had become divided as a result. And this is in Genesis and Luke. Genesis 18:16 through 19, Luke 17:28 through 33, if you want to read up on it. With the coming of dawn, the angel urged the angels. So I don't know, we talked about this before when we were talking about angels. I had mentioned it. I am not a scholar of the Bible, although I remember some things. They may not be completely accurate. So remember that I am just remembering. I haven't studied the Bible and got the scripture, but I'm remembering from what my memory is of it. So at that time, 2 angels had went into the city, and if I remember, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, they might go over this, but God was going to destroy the city of Sodom, and I believe he was talking to Abraham about it, and God said, well, if there's one person, I believe, in the city that is worth saving, I'll save the city. Was that it? Something like that. And Abraham, I believe, told him that, well, Lot is my nephew, and he's a godly man, and so I believe that God sent angels, and I believe we read that there were 3 of them that went to the city. And remember that the city was so corrupt that when the angels came into the town, they went to Lot's house and were staying with him. And there was like this mob of people outside the house that they saw that these angels had entered Lot's home, and they wanted them to defile him, basically, to, nothing. I mean, horrible things to him, just horrible. And I don't think they knew they were angels, but it didn't matter at that point. And so I believe Lot, I think we're going to read it. Lot actually offered, because he knew they were angels, he actually offered his daughters in exchange for these angels. So that's kind of a little bit of, okay, so with the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. And the angels were trying to tell Lot so that they could get him out of there, because God was going to spare him and his family. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives. Now, I have to wonder, I'm pretty sure Lot, I did read that Lot knew they were angels. I have to wonder if his wife knew. I mean, you would think that Lot would have told her that, right? So when an angel tells you flee for your life, I would sure hope you do it. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. That's scary to me. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah. So I believe at this time there was a lot of salt in that area. Oh, it's going to tell us about it next. So that's why I'm guessing burning sulfur from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. That's Genesis 19, 15 through 17, and 23 through 26. Okay, so Lot's wife's life and time. So this is a little more about her. And I did get a story too as well. There's a couple things. So Lot's wife is remembered less for who she was, wife, mother, daughter, sister, than for what she became, a pillar of salt. Just one irresistible but Just one irresistible but forbidden glance back at what was happening behind her, and she turned into salt. Salt, one of the world's most common and most used chemicals. So, I find that fascinating that he actually used salt, and that it was in that area that she was turned into salt. It's very interesting, I think. Palestine, in fact, possessed rich salt depositories, which accounted for such place names as the Salt Sea, also known as the Dead Sea, the Valley of Salt, and the City of Salt. The Romans probably looked on Israel as a worthy conquest simply because of the salt available there. The Hebrews used salt to season food. Is tasteless food eaten without salt? That's Job 6:6. Hebrew women rubbed their newborn babies with salt or washed them in it. I found that fascinating that they rubbed their babies with salt to clean them after they were born. On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt. I found that interesting too because, well, for one, I've always I thought about becoming a doctor because I love the medical field. I was in EMT for about 5 years, and I really enjoy the medical field. And I've been watching, not anymore, but it was a series on midwives, called The Midwife, it was called. And I found it was all the childbirth. I find it fascinating. I know it's not for everyone, but so I often wondered, when women were alone, because now, we clamp the umbilical cord and then we cut it, and then the rest of the cord dries up. But they're saying that they did not cut the umbilical cord, that they left it attached. And so that started making sense to me. I'm like, yeah, so I would assume, it's probably a lot messier, because I would assume the umbilical cord, which is attached generally to the placenta, must just be kept with the baby until it dries up. Now, I'm curious about two things. I wonder if it's better for the baby to keep it attached. Maybe it still contains nutrients that transfer over. And why, just out of convenience, did they start clipping it off? But I can see where it would be harder to keep it attached and maybe messier. But that's interesting, isn't it? And I know with animals sometimes, I don't mean to be gross, but I think they chew it or something. Ooh, I don't know. We'll get off that subject. But I find it interesting that they did not cut the umbilical cord. It makes sense, though. So salt was a required supplement to any Old Testament grain sacrifice. Season all your grain offerings with salt. So salt was a big deal back then. So our life and times. The word salt is used only 6 times in the entire New Testament. All of them symbolic. Jesus said to remember that as a believer, we are the salt of the earth. That's in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Our attitudes and actions can cleanse and season and purify our surroundings. When we respond graciously to someone who is ungracious, we season our world with salt. That's interesting, isn't it? When we comfort the hurt, console the lonely, and encourage the discouraged, or calm the unsettled, we season our world with salt. As followers of Christ, we're salt shakers. We hopeful ones, busy sprinkling our world with the salt that flavors life. So that's pretty interesting. The second part of this Bible study kind of goes over some questions, and I haven't been reading a lot of them. I thought this was a little important though. So I'm just going to read a couple. Lot invited these men to stay in his home without consulting his wife, which I think that happened a lot in those days. What sort of home do you think Lot's wife must have made for him and the children? I don't know about that. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to skip down because I did highlight this one. I thought it would be good to read. So in Lot's wife, we can see ourselves looking back. I sort of like this part of it. So we can see ourselves looking back, regretting decisions made, mourning lost opportunities, yearning for ended relationships. Because we're looking behind us, we can't see what is before us. We must not turn into a pillar of salt, but we'll end up stuck in one place. Do you spend a lot of time looking back? How can you leave the past behind, enjoy the present, and plan for the future? I try not to. That's one of my favorite quotes is Robinson's. For us, we don't look back for very long. Sometimes I think it's good to look. You should look back to evaluate. I think to evaluate in order to move forward. Evaluate what I did wrong or right. Of course, when you're in grief, you can't help but to look back because part of you is like, well, I could have done this. I could have taken more time. I mean, all of those things you're learning and growing through. So I think sometimes it's okay to look back, knowing that you're going to get nuggets of truth to help you move forward in a more prosperous way, right? Okay, so remembering Lot's wife. As Jesus spoke of the cataclysmic events that would take place in the end times, he brought to our attention the destruction of a city destroyed in the book of Genesis, Sodom. Specifically, he called on his disciples to remember Lot's wife, who was transformed into a pillar of salt when she looked back at the destruction befalling Sodom. You look in in the Bible, we look at Lot and his family as they flee Sodom. As we bring this section of the Bible to life, we ask many questions about Lot's wife, the woman whose name was not recorded in the Bible. Yet she is important enough for Jesus to bring her to our attention. Who was Lot's wife? Her origin is unclear. Did she accompany Lot and Abraham when they left Ur of the Chaldees? Did she meet and marry Lot in Haran, where Abraham's father settled and passed away? Was she a Canaanite that Lot married in the land of Canaan? Could Lot have met her in Egypt when they journeyed there? The Bible doesn't tell us. Okay, this is what the Bible does tell us about Lot's wife. When Lot is told to flee from Sodom, here's what the angels tell him. Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. Genesis 19:15. Lot doesn't leave right away. He lingers. So mercifully, the angels use force. See, that's not good either. But honestly, think about it. I mean, remember again, we always think these people in the Bible were supernatural and had huge benefits of faith, but they were like us. Think of it. Like if angels came into your home and they said, "We're going to burn the city down. I need you to leave everything behind and just walk with me right now." It would be hard, right? It'd be hard not to want to stay there, especially if you had friends and family still there or something. It would be hard to leave. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought them out, one said, "Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away." You can feel the building tension, the urgency of the moment, and specifically the divine instructions: do not look back. Lot is fleeing to safety, rescued by angels, with his wife following behind him, and she does the very thing they were commanded not to do. She looked back. Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Crazy, because they knew, they were told by the angels that would happen. So what exactly caused her to look back? I mean, we can only guess, right? Maybe she was in grief. Maybe she was grieving for what was left behind, Was she holding on to a past that she couldn't let go of? Memories of perhaps possessions that were going up in smoke as she moved toward a new life. Maybe it was her position she was clinging to. We saw that Lot was sitting at the gate, indicating that the family held a place of importance in the city of Sodom. Whatever the reason that she clung to her life in Sodom, Jesus brings to light a truth of critical importance. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. That's Luke 17:32 and 33. Lot's wife wouldn't fully walk away from the life she was being rescued from, even though she had been rescued from destruction and given the gift of life. Okay, let's see. This is another article. Let's see, it says, the Sodom and Gomorrah story reaches its climax when Lot's nameless wife is turned into a pillar of salt. The nameless biblical woman has been dismissed throughout history as a vain and materialistic woman who, because of her character, deserved her punishment. The text blames the destruction of Sodom on its wickedness and the transformation of Lot's wife on her unbelief. When people leave wickedness behind, some still pine for their previous evil ways, symbolized by glancing reminiscently toward the past. As Jesus would eventually warn, no one placing their hand on the plow and looking at the things behind is worthy for the reign of God. That's Luke 9:62. Her sinfulness has become normative in modern biblical stories. For example, the Interpreter's Bible notes that Lot's wife was the woman caught in the whirlwind of fire from doomed Sodom because she was still too reluctant to leave the wicked city. She was representative of all those in every time who are caught in the consequences of evil they cannot quite let go. Lot's wife condemnation even comes from the mouth of Jesus, the only other place in the Bible where she is mentioned. When discussing the urgency by which the last days approach those accustomed to luxurious living, Jesus provides it with a warning too. Remember Lot's wife. The assumption is that Lot's wife was narcissistic, seeking the pleasure of this world. This theology is read back into the text, even though the Genesis account is silent about the character of Lot's wife. All that the text tells us about her is summed up in 6 Hebrew words that translate to, and his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Based on this solitary mention, elaborate character portraits of Lot's wife are constructed. Why? To justify her demise. If she is not portrayed as a foolish woman with a self-indulgent heart, then her punishment would appear capricious enough if, because she was a woman, Lot did not bother discussing the option facing them as he did with his prospective son-in-laws. After all, the text fails to note any discussion with Lot's wife concerning what could befall them. That's what I was thinking too, is that I would just assume that Lot talked to him about all this. Unless he was told not to, I don't know. Verse 15 simply has the angel stating, take your wife and your 2 young daughters, lest you be consumed. For most of us, our sense of justice is offended that the God, Sugi, sorry, somebody must be outside. Okay, for most of us, our sense of justice is offended that the God of second chances, the God of love, mercy, and forgiveness, would act so harshly, especially when we consider that the text is ambiguous about who was informed, considering the danger of looking back. In order to justify Lot's wife's punishment, she must either be vilified or simply ignored. Even though her presence is implied throughout the Sodom and Gomorrah story, she remains invisible. For example, when we are told that Lot prepared the 2 angels a meal of unleavened bread, more than likely it was his wife, under patriarchal rule, that did the preparing, serving, and cleaning. Yet for a brief moment, Lot's wife takes center stage in the story. Lot's wife becomes visible when she looks back and is turned to a pillar of salt. This becomes a disturbing tale of a person who is punished for attempting to see the destruction of the city. And yet, when Abram also looked toward Sodom's demise, he's not turned into a pillar of salt. So it's almost, you have to almost wonder if it was a test for her to see if she would do it on her own, is why she wasn't let in on, just to see if she would turn and flee, you know what I mean? Rather than depicting Lot's wife as either the totality of worldliness or the other extreme, ferociousness, maybe we should see her like we see the rest of us, a human who falls short of the glory of God. As an invisible member within a patriarchal society, she probably did the wash, and with her neighbors, also nameless women. They might have been present when she twice gave birth, as she might have been when they gave birth to their own children. That's what I was wondering, if they had a lot of friends. I don't know. It would be hard. I would sure hope that I would do what was right in those times. But, we're human beings, and she was a human being. She shared gossip and stories with them as she tended her garden, prepared meals, or simply rested under the stars after a long day of heavy menial work. The men of the city may all have been wicked, but these women with whom she shared a similar fate of patriarchal oppression more than likely were her friends. Sodom, with all its imperfections, was her home, just like many of us who have made our homes in the entrails of the empire. She might have looked back to see the life that would no longer follow the well-established rhythms of the everyday. She might have looked back to mourn friends swallowed up in God's wrath who were now no more. Grief, that's what I was saying. It could have been grief as well. She might have looked back to say adieu to all the daily rituals and routines that marked her life and provided meaning to her existence. Who among us would not have also taken a peek along with Lot's wife and Abram? Those of us who have known exile, being cast from the land that witnessed our birth, are always in a quest to see the cause of our estrangement. Only then can we hope to find healing and create healthy, well-adjusted lives. We look back, lest we forget our identity. Does not really matter why she looked back. And there's some things that we just don't fully know. The reality is that we will never ascertain the motives of her heart. The fact is that she looked and was swiftly punished by God. If she did know of the consequences and still looked back, then she committed suicide. But if patriarchal rule meant Lot did not need to inform her of what was occurring, then her looking back was an accident, making her a victim of homicide. I don't know, for some reason, I was just thinking it was that God knew her actual heart and was just giving her one more test to see if she would do the right thing. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. Lot's wife is killed because she is prohibited from remembering. There are no opportunities for absolution or redemption offered to her. This is one of those verses in Scripture that is profoundly disturbing. For it seems as if the God of Lot is not the merciful and forgiving God to whom we have become accustomed. I just think it's one of those things that we will not know until we reach our final destination, right? So like there's some things that we just aren't going to know right away. Okay, this did download. I wanted to see, this looks like a pretty good article as well. And so I thought I would go through it real quick. It's Bad Girls of the Bible, which it's Lot's wife is who he's talking about. So a camera slowly pans the darkening skies above Sodom and Gomorrah. Night is falling. Thrumming beneath it all, a soundtrack. Low, rhythmic as a minor key. The music makes the hair on her arms stand up. A swift and terrible judgment is coming, a disaster of truly biblical proportions. And that is true. I mean, that was really a big thing that happened then. When two angelic messengers arrived in Sodom at nightfall, it seemed the only man worth saving was Abraham's nephew Lot. Working through these two angels, see, they say two now. For some reason, I thought it was three. God rescued Lot and his family 7 times by my count. Here's what the angels did. That's pretty cool. Okay, number 1, pulled Lot back into the house when the men of Sodom threatened him. That's in Genesis, yeah, because that's when they wanted the angels that were in his house, and they were going to take him like a mob. I mean, they wanted him whether he was going to, and Lot was, because they were guests in his home, he was responsible for him. So 2 blinded the men of Sodom so Lot could not be found. So when they were trying to find him, the angels blinded these men. Gave Lot a chance to warn his future son-in-laws. Urged Lot to hurry and flee from the city at dawn, telling him, arise, get up, go, quick. Took Lot by the hand and led him out of Sodom. Warned Lot to flee to the mountains. Allowed Lot to instead seek shelter in a nearby town. Though she remained unnamed from first verse to last, Lot's wife was present each of those 7 times. She saw and heard it all and was included in God's salvation efforts. Hurry, take your wife. So evidently she did know most of what was happening then. So her choice to look back must have been her choice, right? She knew what was going on. Let's see. One of the angels grasped her hand, held on tight, led her away from the sins of her past, pointed her toward a whole new future. It's been said that on average people hear God's message of salvation 7 times before responding. Interesting number. Lot's wife, Lot, it says Mrs. Lot, and the 2 little Lots were given a clear choice 7 times. Stay behind and be destroyed, go forward and be saved. Why so many chances? Because of the Lord's compassion, because the Lord was merciful. He saves us. He forgives us. He has compassion on us because of our goodness, but because of our grace. Not because of our goodness, but because of our grace. The Lord asked just one thing of Mrs. Lot and company. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plane. Mrs. Lot didn't say a word, didn't reveal her thoughts, didn't confess her fears. She walked with her family when her family walked, listened when her husband talked, heard him ask if he might hide in Zoar rather than flee all the way to the distant mountains. Then my life will be spared, my soul shall live, my life shall be saved, Lot said. For Lot, everything was in the key of me, me, me. That's why this story demonstrates the wideness of God's mercy. I would never have saved this man, but God would, and he did. The very moment that Lot's wife and their daughters were safely in Zoar, all heaven broke loose. Whew, that must have been quite a sight. Oh, geez, I went too fast. Shoot. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah, brimstone and fire, if you will, a river of lava from God out of the sky. That must have been horrific. Even the wildfires in Colorado and the EF5 tornadoes in Oklahoma, horrific as they were, didn't approach a supernatural level of destruction. Every living, growing thing in Sodom and Gomorrah was utterly disseminated. Because they were in a safe place, Lot and his 2 daughters were spared. Because she ignored so great a salvation, Lot's wife was not. This is her one-line biography. This is a single verse that says it all. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. A pillar of salt. The Hebrew word malach literally means salt, the same kind used for seasoning food or making an offering before the Lord. However, could such a travesty happen? In the original Hebrew, not only does her name not appear in this verse, his name doesn't either. Only the word Isha, meaning woman, wife, female, every woman then. This cautionary tale is for all of us. Don't look back. But she did, looked back. The order of the Hebrew words is reversed, suggesting she lagged behind her husband or was following behind him. Indeed, the custom of the time required the wife to walk a few steps behind her husband. No doubt her daughters walked in front of her as well, so she could keep her eye on them. Typically, mom move. So far, so good. Then she did the unthinkable, the impermissible, like Eve, who broke God's single decree, don't eat. Mrs. Lot's wife broke the one command given to her, don't look. She looked towards the cities instead of focusing on her future. She looketh expectantly, but in wrong direction entirely. The Bible doesn't tell us she stopped the other part of the angelic warning. Maybe she merely glanced over her shoulder and kept walking. But a little sin or a lot of sin, it was still sin. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. Tempting to say, not much grace in the story. Oh, but there was, 7 times. Instead of reflecting on the mercies of God, she looked back on her own life, remembering all the people, places, and things she loved and left behind. Is it just me, or are you hearing the ominous drum beats of that soundtrack running all through the story? Warning, warning, warning. A day will come when we must choose, forward or backward, life or death. And she became. Just as A leads to B, disobedience leads to death. God made that clear in the Garden of Eden and demonstrated it here in a dramatic way. Lot's wife was changed. She was turned into something other than a woman. The last thing she saw, a swirling inferno of ash and sand, wrapped her in its deadly embrace. A pillar of salt. She turned into a column, a statue, a block, hard, immovable, stuck. Yes, we can get that. Can't move forward, can't move backward. That's not where God wants us to be, beloved. There's no life in such a place. The Hebrew word netsheb is translated pillar here, though elsewhere the same word is rendered garrison or deputy. Till I saw Lot's wife on the western shore of the Dead Sea, I didn't realize how well the word suited her. There she stands. Well, at least the sign says it's her. Arms folded, chin jutted out, looking in the wrong direction for eternity. Well, that is a good lesson, isn't it, you guys? Wow. If we leap forward 1,500 years, give or take a century, we'll find Jesus teaching his disciples about the coming of the kingdom of God. Guess which story he used to illustrate his point? Jesus told them it was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. Right, we just watch it happen. Terrible. Jesus continued. It will be just like this on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, no one who is on the housetop with possessions inside should go down to get them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. Luke 17:30-33. There it is, the takeaway from the story spelled out for us. If you've read the fictional opening to this chapter in Bad Girls of the Bible, you know this. There's another study we could do. You know the significance behind this photo of Spirit Lake taken from Mount St. Helens. Lottie was a woman who refused to leave the lakeside home she loved, even when the ground shook and acrid smoke filled the air. Acid smoke. Fewer phrases are sadder than the ones that begin, if only. For those of us who live with a boatload of regret for our past mistakes, the story of Lot's wife is a sobering one. What would be the hardest person, place, or thing for you to walk away from? If God asked you to do so for your own good, how would you respond? Which reminds me, just like, I don't know, it's hard. Moving forward's hard sometimes, right? I think sometimes you have to know that you're doing the right thing moving forward. Sometimes it's selling your house and becoming a minimalist and going in an RV and traveling and hoping it's the right decision. But, you just ponder it, you pray about it, you talk to people about it, you see what people's responses are. How do you feel inside? How's your spirit and soul? And that's what moving forward's about. We don't ever know if you make a big change, if it's the right decision, but you will know. Like I know, I have seen when I was first making the decision, it seemed hard and difficult. And I even likened it to, just jumping off a stage and going for it because it's scary. It's scary sometimes, but you'll know if it's the right thing. You'll know if you're supposed to move out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it's little things. Sometimes it's going back to school after so many years. Sometimes it's just taking a new class, or sometimes it's, I don't know, just getting out of your comfort zone, doing 100 videos in 100 days, or, I don't know. Everybody's thing is a little different. But you'll know if it's right. You'll know if it's right to move forward. So I think that's all I have today. Ooh, that was a good one again. It is the 22nd. Listen to me continually is our okay, gee whiz, devotion for today. I have much to communicate to you, so many people in situations in need of prayer. I am training you to set your mind on me more and more, turning out distractions through the help of my Spirit. Walk with me in holy trust, responding to my initiatives rather than trying to make things fit your plans. I died to set you free. And that includes freedom from compulsive planning. Ooh, that's me 101, I'm telling you. I love to get ahead of God. Like, I love to plan out. That's what becoming mindfulness is all about, I believe. And just that's what meditation's all about. Just trying to be in the moment and freeing yourself from all those wild thoughts that come through your head all the time, planning things out. Let it just unfold and enjoy where you're at. Walk with me in holy trust, responding to my initiatives rather than trying to make things fit your plans. I died to set you free, and that includes freedom from compulsive planning. When your mind spins with a multitude of thoughts, you cannot hear my voice. A mind preoccupied with planning pays homage to the idol of control. Turn from idolatry back to me. Listen to me and live abundantly. John 8, John 10, Proverbs 19. And as I was reading through that, I'm like, well, I've been like preoccupied with things right now because trying to get my house done and all that, trying to make everything fit, into a certain way, but it's just not. So sometimes it's just not going to fit, and you got to not let it bother you and let it unfold in its own time, its own timing, instead of trying to make things fit by your plans. That's what I'm finding out. So I'm having to just let things sort of unfold on their own, even though I had them planned out. But that's hard, isn't it? Sometimes hard for us to do that. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Please make comments. I've got this study. I kind of like having this study because I don't have to think about what I'm going to do every day, and it's pretty cool. I think tomorrow's is Rebecca. That looks good. Okay, so Rebecca's tomorrow. It's kind of nice to have something to look forward to talking about every day. And I love studying about women. I do. I think it's so empowering. So, okay, well, thank you. Subscribe, like, hit the bell. I come to you moving forward 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I try to post at 1 o'clock. Depends on where you're located as to when it goes out. And then Friday, tomorrow, I will update my bodybuilding. And then on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, I'll update you on my house remodel, which I will be done with in May because I'm getting closer. But I have a lot to tell you. So, all right. Be blessed today. Love your friends and family dearly. And much love goes out to you. Thank you. Bye.